Oh, good evening, everybody. So tonight we're going to be doing our actual lithium conversion on this Club Car Precedent and installing the Vatrer 105 amp hour golf cart battery. So let's get started. So right off the bat, I did do an actual review, a tear down of this battery in a prior video, and I'll link to that right here so you can take a look at it if you didn't get a chance to see it. In that video, I did make a couple observations. One was regarding the temperature sensors, to where it didn't seem like they were actually triggering a low temperature disconnect. And I saw some other reviews, they triggered it, and from some comments that I got from some folks, it seems like the lithium iron phosphate cells might be a little denser to where they can retain heat a little bit longer. And so that was probably my issue. There have been multiple videos out there with reviews showing that once those temperature sensors did get below freezing, that they did trigger a temperature-based shutdown of the battery. So that looks like it was just my misunderstanding of how the cells absorb that cold temperature. And then the second thing, it was brought to my attention that there actually is a newer Vatrer app, which I'll show you once we get the battery in the cart. But you don't have to use that Xiang electric app that's mentioned in the materials that come in the battery. So you can actually search your app store for Vatrer and find the appropriate battery app there. So right now, if the camera's not picking it up, it is pretty cold in this barn right now. So we are at the barn at my church where I dropped this cart off a couple of months ago after I grabbed the Midnight Solar PowerFlow 5 battery to move this. And if you missed that video, that was kind of a fun one, so I'll link to that here as well, so you can see how we moved this cart from my pastor's house to the barn at church. But we're finally to that point where we can do the actual conversion, but it's cold outside. I think right now it's 44 degrees Fahrenheit and it's going to be dropping. So if you hear a hissing noise in the background, that is just my little propane heater going, trying to warm the space up. And then hopefully as we progress along, the cameras won't lose significant power. So we can still get this all taken care of. But I really don't think it's going to take all that much time to get everything swapped out. I mean, so we've got to look at pulling out the old batteries, placing the new one in, and probably the longest thing that's going to take time is running the cable underneath the floorboards up to the dash for the little display and for switched power to the 12-volt power supply. And then we will be looking at putting in the Vatrer 51.2-volt 105 amp-hour battery, which gives you just shy of 5.4 kilowatt-hours of battery storage. And we're going to be replacing these 6 8-volt batteries, which give you a 48-volt cart. So let's pull this seat off first, just so that we're not fighting with it the whole time. So let's pull out the old batteries and make room for the new one. So there's all the batteries, the old charger, battery cables, and then those are the brackets that were used to hold those 6 batteries in place. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to reuse these. I'm going to have to figure out some other way to secure the new Vatrer battery into the battery case. So look at how much space we have in here now. pretty sure we could actually put 2 of these golf cart batteries in here if we wanted to. I've got one right now, so my plan is to put the weight on the passenger side. And the reason being, if there's only a single driver, it kind of helps balance out the weight of the cart. So you'll have weight on that side, about 100 pounds on that side, and then depending on the weight of the driver. So you'll have, somewhat of a balanced load on your cart as opposed to having all the weight on this side. Looking at the front here, this is the old charging port. We're actually going to replace this because the Vatrer battery comes with its own charger. So we're going to put our own port here, which will allow us to wire the charger down into this space. So all they'll need is an extension cord to plug this cart in. They won't have to move the charger around anymore at all. So we'll be snipping these wires back a little bit and then taping them up inside here. So should something have to get rewired in the future, they'll still have enough lead to be able to work with it again. I believe these 2 wires here are for their 12-volt lights. So we'll have to look at getting that wired back up as well. Now, one thing that I do see is this is all just a hard plastic. So I don't know how much actual mounting strength it's going to give. So I will mount to this plastic for now, but at some point I might have to either look at ratchet strapping down or running bolts down through and tightening them up. The old system had a bar that ran the width of the entire cart, and there was a hook that hooked onto this bar, and a plate got pushed down on top of the cells holding them in place. So we might just have to get a little creative holding this new battery in place. And actually, I might be surprised when we get this thing in here. It might be a nice snug fit. I don't know. I'm actually kind of worried about some of this being too thin. But let's take a look. And this is, I believe, over 100 pounds. So it's not light. I want to make sure we don't get anything pinched. And I did switch this cover around when I opened it up. So cross your fingers and hope this thing fits. Oh, this thing doesn't fit at all. Alright, so I had to do some creative trimming because apparently the Club Car Precedent has a little bit different of a form factor than other Club Car models, which kind of created a little bit of a problem. You saw I had to go through and trim some of the plastic dividers just to get everything to fit. Now, it is a very snug fit right now. We barely have any room right here. You can still reach back and get your switch back here, and your wiring does still go around. The battery will not slide either direction until I screw it down. It has the potential to rock back, but once I get it screwed down, we won't have anything to worry about. I have to figure out how I'm going to screw it down because of what has changed. I might just temporarily put some screws in for the moment until I can come up with a better solution. Because aside from this tube steel here, everything else is just thick plastic. So there's really nothing good to screw into So I'll run some screws into that plastic just to keep everything fixed. And I'll either at some point look at banding across the top just to hold it down with something, I don't know yet. Maybe I'll talk to a guy in my church who does a lot of fabrication and see what he can come up with. But either way, it's in there and it's not going anywhere right now. So we'll have to get a little creative with some of our wiring so that we can still reach positive and negative terminals and not rub too much. But I don't think that'll be too big of a deal. So let's get this out right now. This is the old connection for the charger that would go into the brains of the cart. So again, I'm going to open this up, cut the wires back a little bit, tape them up so that they can be reconnected in the future if necessary. So yeah, we've got a red, blue, and black wire. Again, we'll just cut these back. Just keep them in the wrap. Just to keep them out of the way. Then we'll pop this off. I don't know if the ring is supposed to come off in 2 pieces, but it did. Now before I can get the rest of this off, I need to take this cover off. And I believe to take this off, I got to get the mat out. And to take the mat out, I have to take this edge trim off. So there's 2 T30 screws here, and then the rest of it really just kind of snaps in to the side of the cart. So let's pull these 2 screws on this side, see if we can start to peel the mat up over here. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll just grab and pull a little bit. It pops it away enough that we should be able to get under the mat and lift up. And the mat up here just sits up against the console, so you should be able to just pull it away and lift up. And so we'll pop the 2 screws and the side piece over there so that we can get this mat off. And make sure you don't lose your screws. 1, 2. Your dash is probably a good spot for those screws. And then pull apart. If you have an air compressor or something, it's probably a good time to try and just clean under here. It looks like we've got 3 more T30s here in the center and on the opposite end for this bottom cover. And pull out from the bottom. So you'll pull out from the bottom and then kind of push down on the plastic trim to get it to release, because it's got some kind of teeth that it slides up underneath. There. It is very tight. It's got little tabs that sit down into little grooves on here. So it will give you some resistance when you try to pull it off. So we actually needed access with this off for 2 reasons. 1, because there's several screws that hold this in place that we need to remove. And 2, because we're going to feed some wires down under the floor pan and up to the dash. 1 for the key and then 1 for the display. So we've got 1, 2, 3 screws for this. and this slides right out. And there's our 3 wires. And we're actually going to look at replacing it with this, so that all you need is an extension cord to plug your card in. The charger will be stored right inside the seat underneath here, connected to this. So all this is a male receptacle on one end and the female plug on the other end. Now it's not 100% fit on here. This is an aftermarket piece, so I'm just going to have to add some screws to make it fit and try to make it as snug as possible so that when they're plugging and unplugging, it's not going to come undone. And this one does come with little self-tapping screws. There, not the prettiest thing in the world. And it's almost straight, but it won't move when they go to plug in. We've got 2 different bundles of wires. This first bundle, this yellow wire, is going to be for the 12-volt power supply. So it tells the 12-volt to turn on and turn off when the key is turned off. So we need to run this yellow line underneath the floor pan and up into the dash back here, and actually it'll get connected to one of the terminals on the back of the key switch. The other cable that we need to run is going to be for our display that we're going to mount. I'm thinking about putting it right here, so it's right in easy visibility for the driver. It doesn't impede any cup holders or anything. I have to check and make sure I'm not going to screw into the actual key switch first, but then I need to figure out where I'm going to come out with the other end of the connector, because it has to feed up and then over. And if I can get away with not drilling a hole, I would like to. So I might just make it come up right between the seam, but we'll see what happens once we get the dash opened up. So we've got, I believe, another set of T30s here and on that side. And then it looks like it should just pop off. I don't see anything else underneath. And so we can see everything in the back. And I'll have to try and figure out where I'm supposed to tie into for the switch, because I'm only seeing 2 terminals there. So I wonder if there's supposed to be something else back in here that I need to tie off of. But the majority of this will be back in here. So I'm just going to feed my wires out through here, right behind the forward reverse switch, and then feed the display line as well. You really have one channel. This channel looks like it drops down underneath, but you've got one channel here, and this seems to be the deepest channel. So I'm going to run it along the back through this channel and then up behind the dash. And obviously I'll have to adjust the length of the line for however much extra slack I have, because I want to pull it back into the compartment here. So it does look like there's a seam right back here that I can feed the display line through. Hopefully I can have it tight enough that I can have the connection down underneath, but I'll need to remove this Phillips screw right here. So it's not actually a Phillips screw, it's a push pin. So I pried that up. And I want to try and feed the actual connector down underneath. And then we'll just kind of run a couple of screws right through here. I don't like using these, but it'll help hold it in place. So at least it's held in place right now. And our connector is underneath the dash. So we can take our cable, get it all locked in place and tucked up back in the back. So this is the switched wire going to the 12-volt step-down converter. And so this needs to be controlled by the key, so that when the key is turned off, it turns off the power to the 12-volt power supply. And so I tested it, and the blue line is the switched line. So the green line is the constant, blue is the switched. So what I need to do is cut this ring terminal off and splice into the blue line down here. And because this is so tight, I might just have to do it and then show you when I'm done, because I don't know how much you're actually going to be able to see. All right, gentle tug test. All right, definitely not the prettiest job I've done, but now we've got it merged together. So when the key turns on, we'll get power to our 12-volt step-down converter. And really what I'm gonna do now is just try and tidy things up and get the dash put back together, so then we can start feeding the line down in this little gutter back over to here so we can start finishing things up. All right, we got the dash screwed back in. Got our wires all bundled up going through that little gutter and back to the back, which means we can put the floor mat back down, we can put that bottom piece of trim back in, and then our 4 T30 screws back in as well. So floor's all back in, trim's all back on. I might have to get creative with this, because you really have to stick your finger down in there to get that plastic cover, the dust cover, off of the outlet. And I honestly don't know if it's going to line up straight, so I'll have to get creative with that one a little bit, but it still should be usable. A little tight to begin with, but should be usable. So now we get to our last couple of pieces. We need to add the battery charger in here, as well as the 48 volt to 12 volt buck converter. So originally I wanted to put the charger right here, but it's got feet on the bottom that need to screw down, and you see right here there's basically a big divot. So I think the charger is going to have to go right here, and then the buck converter can get mounted right here on this side wall here. And that'll just be as simple as, you know, screwing down there, screwing in here, and then we're to the point that we need to start cleaning up wires before we make our final connections. So on this charger, the side that says Vatrer on it, that's going to be the side that has the fan, so you want that facing out so it's not being blocked. So we're just going to set it right down in there. Alright, that thing's not going anywhere. And then we've got our buck converter, DC to DC converter. I haven't shown you this yet. I actually bought this from Vatrer. So it does have a fuse on it. It'll take 48 volt power and then drop it down to 13.5 volts output. And then you saw that it had the yellow keyed option. So actually, the other side of that yellow cable comes with a connector. Here's our 12 volt output, and then our 48 volt input. So I am just going to mount that. It's kind of going to be upside down, but at least this way I can route the cables this way and kind of leave this space open for whatever they want to put in here. So we've got all of our main components in. We've got the battery, the charger, and the buck converter. And really, at this point now, we're to cable management. I mean, this stuff's messy. We've got a lot of little connections that we need to make, and then we need to just wrap all of our cables so that they're not all going everywhere. Now the biggest thing left to take care of is when we go to wire these to the terminals, you're going to be stacking lugs. So you want the largest draw closest to the battery. So you're going to go cart connections, then your battery charging cables, and then you're going to go your buck boost cables. So you're going to go from biggest to smallest as you stack on here. before I do. The last connections that I need to do are the 12 volt power supply. So black from the 12 volt power supply buck converter. Black is negative, green is positive. I know, not confusing at all. So I'm going to take my negative from my 12 volt supply, crimp it on to this butt splice connector. And get our 12 volt supply connected. And green is positive. Again, just cleaning things up some more. Then the last connection is going to be the display connection. And you've got a little bit of extra cable, which if I can tuck it off onto the side, let's do that. Tighten it down. And then yeah, we'll zip tie over here and tuck it in. Grab our cutters and just kind of clean up all these extra tails. So it's not the cleanest job. I might add a couple of more zip ties right to there. But they've got room, some room for storage, charger, buck converter. We got our stacked connections right here with our nice little protective covers. So really, I mean, all that's left is to put the seat on and see if it works. Alright, I guess we press the power button on the battery. And that clicked on. And I bumped the reverse switch. So that was buzzing at me. So, first off, let's see, do we get a display? Yes, we do. Can you see it in the glare? 93% in standby. It says it's 55 degrees. It's probably a little bit cooler than that. But we're looking good there. We don't have any power to our 12 volt yet because the key is turned off. So if I turn the key on, now I have headlights. And if I turn the key off, headlights go off. Awesome. Now, I actually should probably check and make sure I don't have stuff in the way. Headlights are on. We got tail lights on, good. All right, so if I go forward, oh, I'm like, I broke it, everybody. No, it's in neutral. Forward, dumb thing. And reverse. Well, sweet. It actually works. It's almost like I didn't have faith in myself that I could do this. Well, with some of the little hiccups that I came across, I was kind of wondering if I was going to be able to do it or not. Unfortunately, because of some of those hiccups, it is now 11 o'clock. So I don't think I'm going to be doing any driving tests in the neighborhood tonight. We'll see if I can get out here sometime during the daylight tomorrow and do some zipping around the parking lot. See if I could do some in the lawn. I don't know about the lawn because I don't want it to get it soaked, especially if it's supposed to get put away, but we'll play around with it a little bit tomorrow in the daylight. So we'll see you tomorrow. All right, it's a new day, and we finally get to see how this thing performs. So let's not waste any more time. We're going to jump right on in the cart and see how it does. So Vatrer does have its own app, and you can see right here, here's the dashboard of what you can see. Temperatures, high and low cell voltage. You can see the individual cell voltages. Nice basic information about what your battery is doing and how much power it has left. So I'm going to leave that up on screen as we drive around. So we need to come into the cart, turn the battery on, and then I need to switch it to run mode. And then it should just be as simple as turn it on. And I think the display actually comes on when you start going. Oh, I did it again, everybody. I thought I broke it. You gotta get it out of neutral. All right. All right, so the display didn't turn on. So this thing likes to rock backwards. Somebody parked this thing way too tight. It is like 35 degrees outside. So this might not be a super long test because it's cold. But let's... 58 amps, 31 amps. All right, let's do the floret test. 127. Up a little hill. Now we're going down. This is fun. .42, 77.6. Very cool. All right, we'll do one more. I don't really want to go on the grass too much, and you probably can't see it, but right here is a pretty decent grade. So I'm gonna kind of park right here on the grass and then from a stop, see what it takes to get up the hill. It is all wet and squishy, so I don't really want to do a lot of this and leave, ruts. All right, so we are at a stop. We can see the display says 92%. 107. And I didn't punch it, but very, very cool. It's fun having this just work. 87 amps, 62. I don't know how fast I'm going. Whew. All right, I'm starting to lose feeling in my fingers now. I think this has been a successful test, though. This takes some tight turns, too. That's kind of nice. Ugh. All right, back into the garage. I'll have to have my pastor's son use up a little battery, you know, get it down to that 50% storage range for winter. And he's got a couple of days to do it in before it really gets cold. Looking at the app here real fast, we can see 52.7 volts. Protection is stayed as normal. We're at 91% state of charge. We've had 2 battery cycles. The batteries are 46 to 50 degrees. And then all the individual cell voltages. So yeah, this app is much better. Now, one last thing that I did want to mention. On the top of the battery, there is a notice. If this is going to be in your cart or if you're going to be not using this battery for 5 days or more, they recommend turning off the discharge button on the side of the battery. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to disable the contactor that's used to allow power to come out of the battery. That contactor uses power to remain closed. And so if you're not using the battery, if you're not using your cart for several days in a row, make sure you turn that off. It's not good enough to just turn the key off because that contactor is going to remain active and it's going to drain the battery. So yeah, this has been a very fun test. The installation really was easy. It took me longer because there were surprises that I was not expecting, but after doing more research, which I should have done more to begin with, but I just hadn't seen the actual installs of that battery on this particular cart. I'd seen the install on other Club Car models, and so I was not expecting to have to make compartment modifications, let's just say that. But it's in there, snug, tight. We got spare storage room. In looking at this now, you could not get a second one in here. But would you really need it? I mean, these batteries say that they could go, 50 miles of range. So do you really need that extra battery in here? I doubt it. So if you're looking to do a golf cart conversion, take a look at Vatrer. I'll leave links in the description below. They do make, as we saw in our last video, very solid batteries. And they perform really well. I'm actually looking forward to getting out on this cart some more when my fingers aren't going to freeze and it's above 40 degrees. And right now, that's not going to be till springtime. So thank you again to Vatrer for sending this out for this conversion. I appreciate it, and I know my pastor will as well. And I know he's going to be happy to not have to mess with those lead-acid batteries anymore. So with that, I'm going to let y'all go. Y'all stay safe, stay warm, and we'll catch up with you later.